Okay, so you ask, what's a nomad? Are refugees nomads? Are digital nomads, displaced people, diaspora people, people who immigrate to another country, are they nomads? Are tourist nomads? To all of the above, I would say no. By my definition, those are not nomads. Nomad is simply, you can remember it with the acronym NOMAD. No, they are not individualistic, but they naturally network relationships with other people outside of their group. Internally, their group is identified, they themselves identify as members of a clan or tribe or some other social family grouping. Mobility is something that they see as a resource, as a group, for the benefit of the group, for the protection of the group. Mobility is a group resource. Autonomy for their group is a very high value, and they see themselves as distinct or different from other people who don't share this resource of mobility mindset. Now, a lot of people, when I'm doing my global survey of nomads, I ask people on the ground in these different countries, is XYZ people group nomadic? And I go through my definition, just like I said. No, they're not individualistic, but naturally networking relationships external to themselves. Internally, they're organized by clan, tribe, or some other social grouping, and they see mobility as a resource for their community. Autonomy for their group, for their community, is a very high value and distinct. They see themselves as different from others. A lot of people groups around the world, most of the people groups around the world that I look at, they think like this. First of all, they're not individualistic. They're collectivist thinking, not individualistic thinking. They use plural pronouns more often than they use singular pronouns. They talk about we, not just me, myself, and I, but we, ours, and mobility, again, as a group resource. But there's a lot of these other people, they don't see mobility as a resource for the community. Maybe one person goes and gets a job in the city, but he doesn't share that resource with other people in his community. Maybe one guy's a farmer, but he doesn't take his livestock somewhere else for grazing. Or maybe one person out of the village does do that, but he doesn't take the rest of the village's livestock with him. He just uses his mobility for himself, for his own maybe nuclear family, maybe for his mom and dad, maybe for if he's married, for his wife and kids, but it doesn't go beyond that. Mobility is not a resource for the community. Even just one person in a nomadic community, just one person moving can be still part of the identity of the whole community. That mobility, he's taking all the livestock for the community, or maybe he's taking the whole clan, their livestock somewhere else for grazing. Maybe it's one person going to another city to find work, and then he sends money back, and it goes to the development of the entire village, not just for his own family. That's more collectivist thinking, and he's using his mobility. Maybe he's going to Marseille to get money and send it back to his village for development. But he's using that resource of mobility to gain other resource, obviously financial resource, and send it back to his community. Minangkabau people in Indonesia, I'm told, a young man is not considered marriageable unless he's gone out, gotten education or knowledge of some kind, collected that, and brings it back, and he shares that knowledge with the whole community. As a result, you can imagine, they're Indonesia's most educated ethnic group and very influential in politics and government and business and other venues. I call them the hunters of knowledge, the Minangkabau, hunters of knowledge. They're hunter-gatherer people, and they're hunters of knowledge. Autonomy for the Minangkabau is very high value, and they have these other aspects. But some people, I'm told, for example, that there's still kind of a debate: are the Pashtun nomadic? Well, they have a long heritage of nomadic activity. but today they are pretty much settled farmers, and they kind of look down on those Kuchi people who are still houseless and moving. So sometimes there can be this sort of dichotomy of, the glory days of when we were nomadic, but those uneducated people who are still doing that, they're not good. There's a lot of people in the world, especially, for example, Americans, very mobile. They like to travel, like me, go around the world. People have said to me, Ron, you are such a nomad. Well, by my definition, actually, I don't fit. My mobility, my wife and I have moved, the first 30 years of our marriage, we averaged 1.5 homes per year. We're still only just a little bit above that. But finally, we've settled into one house. I've been living in this house for a little over five years. That's a record for us. Previous record to that was we had lived in one house for 3 years. Otherwise, 1.5 homes per year for about 35 years of marriage. Almost 35 years of marriage. Just barely above that now. So these are what I call NOADs. These people who don't see mobility as a resource, but they still naturally network relationships external to their group, and internally they're organized by clan, tribe, or some other social grouping. Skip the mobility. They see autonomy for their group as a very high value. And they are different, or they see themselves as distinct, different from other people. They're different from nomads. They don't like the mobility part. But they're also different from other people. Like nomads also, they can be different from other people based on different language, different dialect, slightly variations in culture, and even country. So they see themselves as different from other people. Autonomy refers to they don't like outsiders telling them what to do. They don't like outsiders trying to influence them. They want to be the ones who invite the outsider to come in. If they see that the outsider has some benefit for their community, well, that's part of natural networking. They naturally network relationships for the benefit or protection of their community. And when it comes to autonomy, they highly value their group's autonomy, and they want to be in charge of getting to say what kind of development happens in their community. A lot of people, NGOs, development workers, they can really kind of mess things up by just coming in, and they say, we see you guys have these problems, we're coming to fix you. That happened to me one time when I was working with nomads. Our family had been living kind of alongside and sometimes among these nomads in the Himalayas for a long time. And a group of veterinarians came in by my invitation, and they were coming and seeing where we were kind of camped alongside these nomads. And they were kind of looking at the goats and whatever. And then one of the elders of the community came over to me and he says, "Hey, Mr. Ron, what are these people here for?" And I said, "Well, they're veterinarians with a lot of experience from Australia, from England, from the United States, and so they've come in to look at your goats and teach you something about how to multiply goats and improve your livestock production." And the old man says, he just started laughing. He says, "These guys, maybe they've got 40 years." He was looking at one of the vets who was about 60 years old. And he says, "Maybe that guy's got 40 years of experience in dealing with goats. We've got 4,000 years dealing with goats. What in the world has this outsider got to teach us?" And I translated all that to the veterinarian. And he says, "Yeah, Ron, you really messed that up. That's not how we would describe what we're here to do. We didn't come here to help them. We came here," he says, "translate this for them." He says, "We came here and we see your goats, your livestock. They're very healthy. They're strong. They're obviously reproducing. And so we want to learn from you what are the good things that you guys are doing and experiencing. And then when we go to some other place, sometimes people will ask us, and we'll be able to share with them about the things that we learned from you. Yeah, that's the way I should have responded. So I told that to the elder shepherd, and then he said, he was happy then. He says, okay, yeah, now we've got something to talk about. And then we went on for hours, each sharing different things that the other could learn. The vet was good at asking questions, and he really spent the next couple of hours, several hours, just learning from the shepherds, these nomads. And then, from time to time along the way, the elder shepherd also would say, well, hey, our goats are having this diarrhea problem. What do you think we should do about that? And then the veterinarian was able to tell him, here's some things. And so it ended up being a good interaction. But please, don't make my mistake. Nomads and all these nomads and NOADs, take out the M, NOADs. Naturally networking relationships, external, internally organized by clan or tribe. Autonomy for their group is a high value. Distinct, they see themselves as different from others based on whatever set of criteria. Skip the M. NOADs and nomads have at least 4 points in common on this definition. And I would say nearly all places where we go for relief and development, nearly all the places where we would go for disciple making, church planting, at this stage, if they're unreached, unengaged, they're going to at least be NOADs, and a lot of them, 400, almost completely unreached, many not even engaged with anyone there to share the good news with them. 400 people groups, 400 tribes around the world, with an average of about 1 million people each. Some of them are quite small, but there's quite a few that are very large. The Fulani cluster of peoples all across the Sahel and all across the Sahel of Africa, right from the Atlantic Ocean on the west coast of Africa, all the way across to Ethiopia. The Fulani, roughly 50 million, almost 50 million people. Many with nearly zero disciples, at least in comparison to 1 million people. If you say there's 1 or 2 disciples, or maybe there's 5 or 10 disciples or 20 disciples, what's that in the face of 1 million? Workers, external workers, or anybody from any country coming to bring the good news of Jesus, the Good Shepherd, even among the Fulani, is nearly zero. There's a few exceptions in Benin and some of these other smaller West African countries in what we might call the southwest of the Sahel, southwest of the Fulani zone. There's some good things going on. But the rest, there's hardly anybody out there even inviting them to the party. Personally, I kind of see that as an injustice.